Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we gathered back here in this room in this series of lectures. We took a break last week due to some unforeseen circumstances. So we continue inshallah tonight. And we have covered on the, the creation of the moon, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah At-Tawbah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the moon almost instantaneously or almost at the same time together with the earth. So the moon was in existence, according to the ayah in Surah Tawbah, was in existence with earth since earth was first created, or the early moments of earth creation. And it actually sync with our, as modern astronomical discoveries, that the moon was actually created very early on from a collision of Earth, we call it proto-Earth or pre-Earth, with another planetary body about the size of planet Mars, and it was a glancing blow. It was not a head-on blow. If it's a head-on blow, then everything will be destroyed. But it's a glancing blow, so the debris was thrown up. Some of the debris thrown up to the space, and then captured by the Earth gravitational pull, and less than, according to some calculations, less than 10 years after that, just about 10 years for this debris to coalesce back, gathered into what we call now as moon. And the, the iron core of that, that planetary body that collided with proto-Earth, the iron core sank into the Earth interior and combined with the Earth iron core, making the Earth core huge. And so therefore Earth has one of the biggest iron core in the middle, and that is actually a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it generates huge magnetic field around the Earth, and that actually protect the Earth from all those dangerous radiation from the sun. The sun's radiation always flows to the Earth, but once there is a protective magnetic field around the Earth, so therefore these dangerous particles or radiations from the sun, they are being deflected to the north and to the south, mostly to the north. And so when they're deflected up and down, just like a windshield, so when it comes crashing back down to Earth on the north, because the magnetic field goes down to the north, and so when it hits to the north and it hits the atmosphere, it creates the aurora that people on Earth found it to be beautiful. Okay, so that is the protection for the Earth. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Dhariyat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَجَعَلْنَا السَّمَاءَ سَقْفًا مَحْفُوظًا, and we have created and we have made the heaven, which is the atmosphere here, سَقْفًا مَحْفُوظًا, a protected roof. A protected roof. So our atmosphere or whatever above us is just like a roof, and Allah protects it. So it protects what? It protects the Earth inhabitants from all those dangerous radiation from the sun. So that is why the Earth is the most, it's the safest planet for, for creatures that has DNA in it, because DNA is a very fragile thing, right? Any very, we'll call it energetic rays, be it alpha rays, X-rays, radio waves, ultraviolets, all these rays, they will certainly cause this DNA to break down. So the more rays that hit the cell, more cells the cell's interior, the DNA will be broken down. So therefore, or it can mutate to other, virulent strain or cells that can kill other cells, what we call as cancer cells. So we have covered that, and now we'll move on to another topic tonight, which is on the expansion of the Earth. Okay, why expansion of the Earth? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah An-Nazi'at from verse 30 to verse 33 on the expansion of the Earth. But before we go into details about the tafsir or the meaning of this verse, just let us just look at how Earth, happened when it was around its middle age, which is, compared to now, if you have 4.5 billion years of Earth life, so its middle life is about 2 billion years. So from the moment of conception to 2 billion years, that moment, 2 billion years, you can call it as the middle age of the Earth. Of course, if you want to compare Earth to its, its death, which we don't know when, so we will not know when is the middle age, but probably around that, because the destruction of the Earth is not that far, right? There are a lot of signs. If we go by our Islamic creeds and our what we believe in the Hadith about the signs of the end of times, and we have seen the signs. We have seen so many minor signs, right, appearing now and then. We are just just a matter of time before major signs started to appear, right? Major signs will be the appearance of Dajjal, the appearance of Imam Mahdi, right? The descent of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, and the final battle between Nabi Isa, Imam Mahdi, and also Dajjal and his army of Jews. So those are the major signs of Qiyamah. But we are now, witnessing all these minor signs, and one of the greatest minor signs, I always stress this thing, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala somehow deliberately wants to remind us every time, right? It's just in front of us. We don't have to, go here and there. We just have to go to Mecca. When we perform our Umrah, our Hajj, we can see one of the greatest minor signs of Qiyamah, the building of the second tallest building in the world. We have the second tallest building in the world just beside Masjid al-Haram, deliberately being built by the government or the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Why? Because for whatever reasons, they just fulfill the destiny that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has decreed upon them and upon all of us. So that is a sign for us, right? So about 2.5 to 2.5 billion years ago, Earth, right? That is the period where Earth was covered mostly with water. Some said Earth was a watery world. There was no land mass. Some said there were some land mass, but few. Not like now. Now we have 30% of Earth's surface covered with land, 70% around that, right? With water, with oceans or with sea. But 2.5 or 2 billion years ago, around that, right? Plus minus, we cannot be accurate. It might be 90%, might be 100% of Earth's surface covered with water. But then, upheavals under the Earth, earthquakes, right? The plate tectonics, and therefore land mass started to appear, right? And so the water started to recede from this landmass, and because landmass started to get higher and higher, and because of the movement of this plate tectonics, all this land, right, they somehow, after a few 100 million years or a few tens of millions of years, they started to collide to form one huge supercontinent, which we call as, they call it, the scientists call it as Pangaea and Gondwana. We have covered this thing before. So there were several supercontinents that occurred in the past, right? About 2 billion years ago. Now, all these things, right? Landmass started to appear and they started to congregate into one. It's not just a very smooth movement, but it's like an earthquake. They collided. Just like, whatever we are witnessing right now. We have this earth plate and that earth plate. When they started to collide, when they start to move away, when they start to slide, then we have earthquakes, violent earthquakes, right? Something that can cause mountain to form or cause mountain to collapse. So there were a lot of these collisions, and because mountains will form and landmass will form, so therefore weather patterns change, because weather is caused by hot air and cold air, the currents in the atmosphere. And this movement of air currents, right, here and there, helter-skelter, going up and down, it is because of they are being heated, whether heated on land or on sea, or whether their movement is being blocked by a chain of mountains or not. So therefore, weather patterns on this in this planet, right, is being influenced by the surface of the earth itself. A very good example will be the weather pattern that we are very intimate with, we're very familiar with, the El Nino effect and the La Nina effect. The El Nino effect caused drought this area, and La Nina effect will cause a lot of rains that fall around these areas or this Asian region. Why is this El Nino La Nina effect? Now it is being theorized, right? It might be true because data being collected right now is being shown to somehow rather this data support that theory, that El Nino and La Nina form because of the wind that blows across the southern part or the middle part of this Pacific Ocean, and it's a huge body of water. Okay, so the wind blows from the east to the west, so from South America right to Philippines and Southeast Asia. So now this wind blows across large, vast body of water. Now, if this body of water's temperature increase just 0.5 degrees, it will heat up the air that blows above it. You say, wow, it's impossible. How can just 0.5 degrees you can heat up the air? Well, it happens because it is a vast body of water. There are tens of thousands of kilometers of water. So the wind just blow over it and it being heated up, right, by 0.5 degree, maybe 1 degree. And so therefore it becomes hot. When it becomes hot, it rises up. And so rises up. So when it reaches Southeast Asia, right, whatever wind that reaches us will be dry wind because all the moisture will be sucked up and heated up by the sea itself. And so therefore all the moisture will be blown away from South America right to Southeast Asia, and all the moisture will be sucked up from there, and therefore our Southeast Asian region will experience drought, dry weather. So we have forest fire, this and that, haze, and so forth. But it brings a lot of rain in the South American region, and it's disastrous for them because South American region, we have the Chile, we have Peru, and all this. They are used to dry weather. So when they have all this rain coming non-stop, right, all this rain falling down, it will cause a lot of landslides, flooding, this and that. So there's El Nino effect. Now the opposite is La Nina, and the surface of the water becomes cool, right, by 0.5 degrees, and so therefore when the wind blows and reach our region, it becomes cooler, and so therefore it brings more moisture, and therefore there'll be a lot of rain around this region. But the opposite effects on the South American region, they'll be drier over there. So all this weather pattern is because of just because of body of water, right, blowing over the body of water. And what about our monsoon season? Our monsoon season is because of what? Because wind blowing from the north and from the south, and it's being blocked by the Himalayan chain of mountain. So that Himalayan chain of mountain actually caused weather patterns. You remove the Himalayan chain of mountains, right? If you flatten it, there will be no Gobi Desert, there will be no Tibetan Plateau, and so therefore, right, the monsoon will change, the weather season will change. So this weather, right, all these things caused because of the structure of Earth's surface. So when there are a lot more land masses, right, appearing, and so therefore the land gets heated up more easily by sun rather than the sea, because sea, we learn in geography that the sea absorbs the heat. So therefore during nighttime the sea is hotter than land, but during the day the land is hotter than the sea because it's easily being heated up by sun. And so therefore when it's being heated up, air rises, and so the cool air from the sea will come in, the sea breeze will come in, and we bring a lot of moistures from the sea, and so therefore there are a lot of rains falling right on land. And that is basically this what do you call it, a known fact by those people who lived in the South Pacific Islands, those islanders, the Pacific islanders, the Maoris and whatever, the Tahitis or whatever, they migrate from one island to another. They can find an island, even though the island is 500, 600 kilometers away from them, but they know how to go to that land. They can populate those islands. How did they do that? It's because of this fact. They know that clouds will gather around land mass. So if they can see clouds out there, a lot of clouds, thick clouds around that region, so there's a very high chance, high possibility that there is a land mass there, there is a mountain there, there is an island there, so let us go there. So if you go there, it might be a new fishing grounds, because fish you can find around islands. You don't find fish in the middle of the ocean. It's as barren as desert. You don't have nutrients for them. So fish always congregate around islands. That's where they have their nutrients, they have their foods, and they have corals and this and that. So this is how they migrated from one island to another, and then they populated all those southern Pacific islands because rain gathered around land masses. So there are a lot of rains that fall on land, and when with rain, it causes a lot of vegetations to grow. And then after that, with rain also, there are rivers from, because there are mountains, because when continents collide, it crumple up and it causes mountain chains to form up. So these mountain chains will block the flow of the air, and this flow effect with moisture going up, right, and form clouds around the mountains. And after it rains, that's why it rains a lot around the mountains. If any one of you go to Sabah, go to Kinabalu, right, you can experience that. Morning time will be fine. You can see the Kinabalu mountain, the highest mountain in Southeast Asia, about 4.5 kilometers high. But afternoon, right, there will be a lot of rains. You can't see the peak of the mountain. So it's always fine during the day, during morning. And I observed that because I went there, right? I saw that during the day, before noon, right, it's fine. You can see the mountain peak and so forth. But once it reaches noon, there'll be rain and rain and rain, and sometimes all the way to the evening. Why? Because of this moisture going up, gathered up to the mountains, form clouds, right? So it rains. So but it takes time for this cloud to form up, and the time is during the daytime when the land mass is being heated up, so it goes up, so the air rises up. So after a few hours, right, 3, 4, 5 hours, then it becomes cloud and it rains. So when it rains, there are rivers. And it's also a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The rivers flow from the mountains right to the sea. Now, the rivers will, carve the mountainside. And this mountain, where it rises up, it brings along a lot of nutrients, minerals, and so forth. So these minerals is being, recycled and pushed back to the sea for those marine animals, for vegetations and plants to absorb those nutrients and minerals and grow. And so therefore, all these rivers play a very important and vital role for living creatures on earth to live and to have their foods and nutrients. So rivers carved and they bring away all the nutrients, and all these nutrients, right, will be flushed into the sea. And so therefore the sea has a lot of nutrients. And when there are a lot of nutrients, so therefore the first animals that form, right, they were the marine animals, not the land animals, the marine animals, because there are a lot more nutrients in the sea rather than on land. So land, there are a lot of vegetation, but no, big mammals or big animals. But the first big animals or substantive size animals, they form in the sea. Then after that, slowly it propagates, and somehow or other, there were also land animals on land, right? They were there. We still do not know, scientists do not know how these marine animals, can produce land animals, or these two types of animals from independently of each other. Was there evolution taking place or not? We do not know. A lot of speculations. Okay, so then we have also glaciations, right? much like rivers also, glaciers also scrub the rocks of their nutrients. And glaciations happen because of the snowball Earth. And we have learned about this thing, that somehow rather in Earth history, there were a number of times when the temperature of the Earth plummeted. And so therefore, Earth was put into a deep freeze. So almost 90%, some say 100% of Earth's surface was covered with ice. But then somehow rather Allah caused the temperature to rise again, whatever the factors, we do not know. It might be a change in Earth orbit. It might be a passing, star. It might be an asteroid hitting the Earth. It might be super volcano. There are a lot of reasons for Earth temperature to rise up. Earth temperature started to rise up because maybe a lot of methane gas being produced or carbon dioxide being produced. It traps the heat. It might be a slow, gradual process. It might be a quick process. We do not know. But what we do know is that the ice ages ended, and so Earth came out of that deep freeze, and so the ice started to thaw. The ice started to melt. So when the ice started to melt, all these huge glaciers started to melt. This melting water started to become rivers, and sometimes this ice itself, or this ice on Earth's surface, right? Because the front part is already being melted, so they started to slide down from the mountain side. So if they form on top of the mountain because of gravitational pull, right? This huge boulder of ice, they started to slide down, but they slide down very so slowly. It takes about 2-3 centimeters per year, or 4 centimeters, hardly noticeable by us. But surely if you take a time-lapse picture, you can see that the glaciers somehow rather like sliding down. So when it slides down, because it's a huge mass and it slides down the mountain, so it scrubs away the mountain side. So it causes, a very smooth surface on the mountain side. So when you see some mountains with some very smooth surface on its side, it might be because millions and billions of years ago, right? Maybe 2 billion years or maybe 1 billion years ago, we do not know, all these glaciers started to slide down and scrub away, right, the mountain surface. So when it is scrubbed away the mountain surface, it brings together all the nutrients, right? It scrubs the nutrients and return it back to the soil. So there are a lot of vegetations growing. So that's when the Archean period, when the earth is being prepared to receive animals, is a period where vegetations, a lot of large vegetation started to grow, right? Rains and temperature started to stabilize, right? It's not very wild like during the Hadean period, the hot time period. So starting to produce some or other set the stage for creatures on earth to prosper, to be in existence and to populate the earth. So all these things, geographical, actions taking place because of the benefit of creatures that Allah SWT wants to put on earth. And then after that, these glaciers, when they melt, of course, when they melt, if there are depressions on Earth's surface, they will cause puddles of water. And so these puddles of water becomes whether it's a lake or streams or whatever. That is why, if you go to Canada, Canada is a land known as, 1,000 million or whatever, 1,000 lakes. So many lakes. Incredible. If you look at the map of Canada, is dotted with lakes here and there. Why is it because full of lakes? Because about 10 to 15,000 years ago, not long ago, 10 to 15,000 years ago, when Earth was plunged into an ice age, there were glaciers, right? Ice covering the surface of Canada. But then after that, temperature started to rise, all these glaciers started to melt, and so therefore when this liquid water, they flow into a puddle, to a depression on Earth, and so therefore they form lakes. So there are a lot of lakes, right, in Canada, and so also there were lots of puddles of water, huge puddles of water in Siberia during summertime. Why? Because all these permafrost there some of it started to melt. And so Earth becomes a habitable place for creatures to live. And then now we look at the verse from Surah An-Nazi'at. In Surah An-Nazi'at, Allah SWT says here from verse 30 to verse 33, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والأرض بعد ذلك دحاها أخرج منها ماءها ومرعاها والجبال أرساها متاعا لكم ولأنعامكم صدق الله العظيم والأرض بعد ذلك, and the earth after that, بعد ذلك, no, the keyword is بعد ذلك, and the earth after that. After what? After the creation of the earth itself. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said dahaha, Allah expanded it, He expanded the earth. Now the word daha, if you look at some books, they will say that this verse is proof that earth is not perfectly spherical in shape, but is somehow like an oval shape, just like the egg of the ostrich. The egg of ostrich is, the egg of chicken is more elongated, but the egg of the ostrich is more rounded, but it's not a perfectly spherical shape. So they say this is the proof that the earth is like that, and it's true enough, because the earth, is not perfectly spherical. Why? Because the earth is rotating, and when the earth is rotating, right, anything that you rotate, that you produce centrifugal force that cause things to fly away. Just like, when you sit in a bus, on a car, when the bus and the car turns, you'll be thrown away to the side or to this side. Why are not staying in the middle, just staying like that? But why you thrown left to the right when the car or the vehicle turns left, right? That is centrifugal force in action. Okay, and that's why the moon does not fall on Earth, because of centrifugal force, because it's rotating. The Earth is pulling, right? But if the moon is not moving around the Earth, the gravitational pull of the Earth will pull the moon to the Earth and crash to Earth itself. But because the moon is moving, and so therefore it cannot crash on Earth. Just like, when you rotate something, it will not fall. You play skipping, this very flimsy rope, right? If you stop skipping, the rope will just fall on you. But if you continue skipping, the rope becomes like a very rigid structure that goes up to your head and goes down. So it becomes a loop, right? It will not fall. So why it becomes a loop? Because you're doing very fast, and when you're doing very fast, you're creating a centrifugal force that cause the the skipping rope to be pulled out there. A little bit of physics lah. So whatever it is, because the Earth is rotating, and so therefore the area around the Earth equator, because the Earth is rotating like this, the area around the Earth equator bulges out a little bit. So the Earth is like flattened a little bit, not that much, but a little bit flattened. Not, you said, is it like an egg? No, it's not like an egg. The difference in diameter or radius, right, from the center of the Earth to the equator, and from the center of the Earth to the North Pole and the South Pole, the difference in that radius is just about 40 to 45 kilometers. So the difference is not that much. 40 kilometers is just about, a dot. If you compare surface of the Earth, it's just like a dot, because 40 kilometers is just like the length of Singapore from Changi to us. That's about 40 kilometers. Singapore is very, very small. That's why Singaporeans become claustrophobic, itching to get out of Singapore. So how beautiful Singapore is, they are itching to get out of Singapore, because for them and for people, Singapore is very, very, confined place. Now, just latest news that, they have opened up the borders to Malaysia, and suddenly the price of all these plane tickets started to shoot up wildly. It means that a lot of people trying to get out of Singapore. So it's like that. So 40 kilometers is not that much, but it's still not a perfectly 100% spherical in shape. So some people say the word daha means that. Because why? Because the ostrich egg in Arabic is also called as a dahwu. A dahwu. So they said daha means the same, so it's ostracism. But well, you can look at it from that way. But if you ask me, I will say that it's not that accurate, because the word daha actually means to expand, to open up. It's not the ostrich egg itself. Now, why is it called the ostrich egg as a dahwu? Because the ostrich egg falls down on the earth. So they call it as dahwu. Just like, when you read Surah Al-Alaq, Iqra bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, khalaqal insana min alaq. Read by the name of your Lord. Bismi rabbika alladhi khalaq, your Lord who creates. Khalaqal insana min alaq, the one who created man from al-alaq. Now, what is al-alaq here? Some scholars, translators of the Quran, they said it's congealed blood. But is it really a congealed blood? No, it's not a congealed blood. The word alaq itself literally means something that is attached. It's not congealed blood. So where is the congealed blood comes into the picture? It is because, in the past, when women have miscarriages and whatever fetus inside their womb drop from their womb to the earth, and this fetus, be it a lump of flesh or a shape of a small baby or whatever it is, it falls on earth, is that thing, right? But it is wet. And when it's wet, it falls on earth, and because earth is dusty, a lot of sand, so all these sand started to, of course, stick into that lump of flesh or that fetus or whatever you call it, that fell from the woman's womb. So it becomes all this attached there. And that's why this is the story. That is why the Arabs call this thing as al-alaq, because it attracts all this dust and earth into it. And therefore, by extension to that, they say that al-alaq is also a congealed blood. But al-alaq also can be anything that drops from the mother's womb, right, when she has a miscarriage during that time. So why you specify just one part of that meaning of al-alaq? There's a wider meaning of al-alaq. So that is why Al-Quran, if you just depend on translation, will not give a complete picture. We have to go back to the original Arabic language to really, appreciate the deeper meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intentionally uses for his words, for us to read and for us to understand and for us to do research upon. That is one of the miracles of the Quran, and that is one of the miracles of the Arabic language. Allah caused the Arabic language to be like this, so that it can hold the final message that will be the eternal message for humans right to the end of time. Daha means expanded, and it so can mean as ostrich, which is up to you. But I prefer to go back to its original meaning, that daha means to expand it. So Allah SWT expanded the earth after its creation. And after that expansion of the earth, which, creation of more land mass, Allah SWT continues the story, which is what? Akhraja minha ma'aha. He brought forth from earth its water. Brought forth from earth is water and its pasturage, mar'aha. So this comes when you have land masses that I've explained just now. A lot of rains comes in and falls down on earth, and then bring forth all those water and puddle, becomes rivers, and then we have lakes, and then we have glaciers, and so therefore the nutrients have been scrubbed from the surface of the mountains or surface of the earth, and therefore you have vegetation. So this is what is called as pasturage, mar'aha. Right, the place where, for pastures, for animals to eat. Wal jibala arsaha, Allah SWT says, and the mountains he made them firm. Why Allah SWT mentioned mountains after Allah SWT mentions water? There must be some, some, what do you call it, connection between the two. And the connection is the what? Yes, water is very important when it comes from the mountain. Because water, just as water it is, right, it will not do anything. If you have a puddle of water, a lake, for example, a pond, for example, you can get, stagnated, and after that, the water becomes foul. But if you have mountains, then the water will flow. When the mountains flow, the mountains scrub away, bring together the nutrients from the mountains and return back to the earth. And so therefore you have, a renewal of nutrients for earth's surface, because nutrients will be depleted by all those vegetation. So you need to have, replenish those nutrients from where? From the rivers that bring down the nutrients from the mountains. So that's the connection, right? From with water and also the mountains here. So everything that Allah mentions in the Quran is deliberate. It's not something coincidental. It is for us to ponder, to contemplate. And then everything Allah SWT ends with what? Mata'an lakum wa li'an'amikum. All these things provision for you, O men, and for your cattle. This is the lesson. I made all these things, this wonderful thing. If you go and discover, you try to find it out, you will see the mercy of God, and all these things for you. So where is your gratitude to God for everything that God has bestowed upon you? That is the lesson for us to ponder, right? Everything that we have, everything that we own, everything that we enjoy is because of Allah's blessings. But how much gratitude that we have shown to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that is the question we have to ask ourselves. Okay, so this part, the expansion of the earth, is more on Surah An-Nazi'at. We will go back to this theme, وَالْأَرْضَ بَعْدَ ذَلِكَ دَحَاهَا, when we talk about the sequence of creation between the heavens and the earth. That will be the next theme or the next issue we're going to discuss next week, inshallah, which is the creation order. Okay, so we have about 3 more minutes. Let's see if there's any question. Yeah, there are 2 questions. Okay, the first question. Could you narrate a bit between Suratul Hadid and the massive iron that has been embedded in the earth in its formative age? Yeah, Hadid, which means metal, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the surah and name it as Suratul Hadid, which is surah of metal. And in that, towards the end of that surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here, وَأَنزَلْنَا الْحَدِيدَ فِيهِ بَأْسٌ شَدِيدٌ وَمَنَافِعُ لِلنَّاسِ. And we have sent down iron. Send down iron. Of course, the word send down can also be interpreted as created iron, right? Because the Arabic language, right, they have this, what you call it, as literal meaning and also metaphorical meaning. So the literal meaning of anzalna is we send down. The metaphorical meaning for anzalna is we create, because they use the word, like, for example, the rain comes down from the sky, and so therefore from there the earth spring forth with all those vegetation. So it's a creation of life from water. So by extension, so we say that the creation comes from coming down. So the coming down also means creation. So that is the extension of the meaning. But you go back to its literal meaning. The literal meaning, anzalna, means send down. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says here very clearly, Allah sends down metal. Now, how can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send down metal? This, of course, eludes all those previous mufassirun or scholars, because, the knowledge of the formation of the earth and the formation of the moon is very, very recent. It's just about 10, 20 years ago, or 20, 25 years ago, right? And all these scholars, they live hundreds of years ago. So of course, you can't expect them to explain about the descent of metal from the heaven. But we now know, right? It's literally what really happened during the early formation of the earth, right? Metal came down from the heavens. From where? From that prototype planet, planetary small planetoid that hit the earth. And so the metal core, right, came down from the heavens and then sank into the earth core. And Allah SWT says, وَأَنزَلْنَا الْحَدِيدِ فِيهِ بَأْسٌ. In this metal, there is something that is strong. And again, if you want to, subhanAllah, if you want to try to discover more about metal, you find how truthful that verse is. Allah SWT just mentioned fihi bats. There is strength in metal. And of course, past scholars said, of course, it's strength because, we use metal as a shield, sword, this and that. So metal is one of the strongest element, strongest mineral. But it's not the strongest mineral. If you want to know what's the strongest mineral will be, or the strongest material will be diamond. It's the hardest. That's more than that. And we have, Kevlar. That's stronger than metal. Or you have a carbon nanotubes. You have just small, chain of carbon molecules. It's a very, very small chain of, and we can make it into one thread, but that is stronger than steel. Stronger than Kevlar. No, Kevlar is material that they use for, bulletproof vests. So when you shoot, the metal will be bent and stopped by that Kevlar. All right. So this is not the strongest, but Allah SWT says fihi bas. It is one of the strongest. And that you have to go back to its molecular properties of metal. If you look at metal, right, is Fe in the periodic table, and the number is 56. The number of protons and the number of protons and number of neutrons, and of course sometimes not balanced, then you have isotopes of iron. So the mass is 112. But why is it strong? Because you can fuse two elements together. If you join together hydrogen and hydrogen, you can have helium. You join helium and helium, it becomes hydrogen, helium, beryllium, magnesium. Oh, is it? Something like that, lah, right? So you join together, and then after you join more and more together, more helium, more hydrogen to that element, and then you go up this periodic table stable, right? You're going up the periodic table, what do you call it? Numbers. So that's how elements were being cooked up and being formed inside the core of the star by the fusing of these atoms. Hydrogen and helium atom, they continue to fuse, and then they produce new elements, and then more hydrogen atoms fuse, and then it becomes carbon, it becomes oxygen, nitrogen, neon, xenon, and so forth and so forth and so forth. So it becomes more and more complex. So more and more complex elements will be formed inside the core of the sun. Sorry, the core of the star. But this fusion of atoms have to stop. It will hit a brick wall that it cannot proceed further, it cannot fuse further when it reaches the element Fe, which is iron. When it reaches iron, it becomes so compact that no more elements can fuse in. If they try to fuse in, yes, they can, but they produce elements that are rare or unstable. So for example, uranium, right? All these things are rare elements or unstable elements. But common elements stop at iron, because the the strong nuclear force inside the iron atom is very strong that you can't squeeze more atoms into it. It's very, very difficult. And so when the sun or when the star dies, so it exploded, and all these elements being thrown away all over across space, and then after that they congregated back, they congealed into become planets and another star. And so these planets, just like Earth, contains all these elements, iron, right? We have oxygen, nitrogen. So all these things came from the star. And so therefore, when Allah SWT says, وَأَنزَلْنَا الْحَدِيدِ, we send down iron, the second interpretation we can take is that literally this iron all this iron that on Earth, they came from the star, the previous star that exploded, that cook up all these elements and this iron. And so therefore it came raining down from the heavens up there. So it actually, anzalna means we send down, literally we send down all this iron. So there are two interpretations for that iron, fihi bas wa manafi'u linnas, and also there are a lot of benefits for irons. And because without iron core, Earth will be a barren, dead planet. There will be no life form on Earth. Just like on the moon itself, nobody can survive because there's no iron core. So there's no magnetic field. When there's no magnetic field, all those astronauts, if they stay on moon for a long period of time without the protective cover, they can die easily out of cancer and of all those radiations from the sun. So that's it about the iron. All right, the second question is about, the ayah 30-33, which surah is this from? Yeah, I mentioned here, if you look at the slides at the bottom, is surah An-Nazi'at in juz 30. The second surah of juz 30. The first surah of juz 30 is surah An-Naba, the second one is surah An-Nazi'at. You can find it there. Okay, so we'll stop here. Inshallah, we will continue next week on the last issue or last topic with regards to the creation of the earth, which is what I mentioned as the creation order. Which one came first, the heavens or the earth? Okay, inshallah, we'll meet next week. Okay, thank you very much. And we end with Tasbih Kafarah and Suratul Asr. Subhanallah, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal 'asri insana fi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilus solihat wa tawassaw bil haqqi wa tawassaw bis sabr. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.